explosives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my secret.
God,
I'm always stupid.
I gotta watch that movie again.
You
So
drink
good.
yourself brain damaged?
Yeah, pretty
Yes, but
Oh,
you would
God.
pass out before that happens. Anyway.
what's the term? Drink yourself blind. That's a literal term.
Oh,
yeah.
God. I don't want
I
to know.
bet.
Anyway, let's get started, folks, because this is going to be fun. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to SmudTalk number 14. This is going to be a fun, simple, easy, talky, funny, cheesy...
Cheese is serious business.
Oh, he said the term. He said the title.
Darn. Okay. So, yeah. Here's Cheddar. Here's Crazy Philosopher, myself, and Tanuki. If you don't know who we are, Cheddar is a artist. Crazy Philosopher is a Swiss man. I am from Toronto, and Tanuki likes everything regarding things you use your mouth with. So we're going to have lots to talk about.
You know what? That's a roundabout term for it, but I approve.
Okay. All right. So my background is traditionally French and Italian cheeses, mostly Italian because that's what I grew up on. We're going to watch a video that's a TED Talk for 5.5 minutes, which is about the history of cheese. And we're going to be pausing in throughout, talk about the kind of cheese they introduced because they're ancient cheeses. They're still around today, some of them at least. And
Yeah, what was the most recent one was like an ancient Egyptian cheese that was untombed.
there's all kinds of fantastic cheeses that obviously don't use the same techniques as thousands of years ago, but they're still pretty close. So
Well, that's why we have all these wonderful different types.
Oh,
Like
it's great.
Velveeta.
What?
I'm here for the worst end of the cheese.
Are you like the trailer trash version of cheese that we
Yeah.
have?
The vaguely looks like cheese, kind of. Just
Okay.
went-
All right. I mean, that's fair. People love cheese. I don't care what version of it is, but
I mean,
Cheddar,
I prefer the fancy.
Cheddar, I'm judging you.
Oh, you're judging me? How dare you? I am
Oh, Velveeta.
oh well. Wait, no, I like some fancy cheeses. I just haven't gotten to try them because they're expensive, and I was poor.
What, like halloumi or like a good grilling cheese or something like that?
I like Gouda.
Gouda's good.
That's fancy, isn't
You
it?
know what's better than Gouda? Smoked Gouda.
Oh yeah, smoked Gouda.
Downright orgasmic.
It's kind of funny. You can't really compare one cheese to another unless they're in the same category. They're basically worlds apart. They may as well be. You may as well be talking about planets.
Oh yeah,
and
it's heaven and earth.
oceans. Yeah, you're like, what? How do I compare a blue cheese to a hard cheese? Like, you just can't do that.
Yeah, or do like
Mediterranean.
a brie to
That's
like
true.
a cheddar that's been aged 10 years or something like that. It's just the texture, the way the flavor combines with everything. It's so different that it literally is heaven and earth. Like when you're comparing flavors, it's just apples and oranges at that point. Cheese is just as complex as beer and whiskey, which I've also talked about.
Oh
It's
yes.
almost more complex.
Oh,
All the
absolutely.
shit you can do to it.
We're talking about solids and partial solids and liquids and what you do when you ferment them and how you dry
Oh yeah,
them.
it literally goes down to the molecular structure of everything of it.
I would argue, though, that there's more science and technique in making beer just because there's more steps. But the same steps for making beer are like 1/3 of that is what goes into making whiskey or certain kinds of whiskey. Some beer can be aged in barrels that whiskey is also aged in. Cheese is more or less a drying process after it's been going through its wet stage, I guess you could say, the fermenting stage. And it just sort of sits there and ages in either dry air or salty air or whatever air you like.
Or like the different humidities or level of altitude also affect the entirety of the molecular structure of the cheese itself.
The rinds you get, whether you cover the rind or not properly or not, it's all different techniques depending on where you go in the world. Portugal likes using caves, for example. That's a very common drying technique. So it depends on the cheese you like for what reason. And the beautiful thing about it is to me, you should always eat it pure. You can add it to things, of course. I'm not against that. You could cook with it. You could heat it up. That's fine. But
also, recommendation for anybody who does like melted cheese on things. If you're going to do melted cheese, don't buy pre-shredded. Get the stuff that's actually like a block and then shred it yourself.
Oh.
Because the way it's set up, the preservatives actually cause the melting effect to be like different for like pre-shredded cheeses as opposed to block cheeses.
So
So
what it is in the bag, they put like a powder or a starch on them so that the
Yes.
cheese doesn't stick to each other. Because if you ever grated cheese from a block, they stick, and you can almost compact it really, really easily.
Right. So even making pizza, like even I won't shred my cheese. I'll just cut it normally, nice thin slices, lay it down.
A classic fucking margarita style.
Yeah, you don't shred your cheese unless you really need to.
Italian, of course.
You can't shred mozzarella. It's just too watery. It doesn't matter really what kind. Just don't do that.
Apart.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Well, there are ways.
Hand shredded Parmesan though. That's that's light years.
This was a thing I actually wanted to mention in this chat.
Like a good fucking like caco de pepe. That shit's fucking incredible.
It just said Parmesan on the thing.
Well, no, the way it works is that if you're doing caco de pepe, it's cheese and pepper, and you use the starches from the pasta water, reduce it down, and the starches act as an emulsifier, and it combines the oil and whatnot together, so it forms this like super creamy sauce for what you're doing, and it's just like it's the sum of the parts kind of thing, where it's just like it's such a delicious dish, even though it only has like 5 ingredients. And it's that whole thing where it's like the fats from the cheeses shouldn't mix with the water of the pasta water, but because of the starch in it, it acts as an emulsifier to combine the entire dish together.
Oh, I see. What were you saying, Philosopher?
So, because it was my suggestion to do a cheese talk, I also wanted to... I forgot to take the photographs of my own supermarket nearby, but I had this one in the chat. So, in pretty much every medium-sized supermarket, there's one like this one that you see in this chat. I'll also put it in the Discord.
Ooh, that's lovely.
And it's mostly local cheeses. Then you have another one of roughly the same size with just packaged cheeses from all around the world. And then you find the cheaper stuff somewhere nearby to where the milk and everything is. So pretty much every roughly medium-sized supermarket in Switzerland has like this one for local cheese, another one of the same size for foreign cheese, or sometimes even local cheese that is harder to get, and then another one for the cheap stuff. So
long story short, kids, cheese is complex.
There's loads of cheese we can get.
So
it's more than just cheddar.
I'm just looking at these prices, so I don't know the exact exchange rate, but these seem like bargains to me. But
I would assume that's because in Europe, because they're in like on the same continent, they don't have to have overseas prices.
Yeah, I think I can't see quite clearly if this is per 100 grams or something like that.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
So,
it's usually determined on weight, so it's usually per 100 grams is this price, and the exchange rate, I think it's like 1 Swiss franc is roughly like 90 something American cents.
Patching it through.
Pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
So it'd actually be like 20. It's like 2 per 100 ounce, and so a wedge like that would be like $20.
Yeah, roughly.
That's usually how they get you. I don't know why they don't just put the price down on it. They have to be like, per pound.
Well, if it's one like that, you go there and say, I would like to have so and so many gram of that one, please. And so, so the other one, usually those are also the more cheaper ones, the more easily available ones, and then in the other place where you can, they are usually the more expensive ones, and sometimes the more exotic ones, like one I got recently that, even though it's not a Swiss cheese, a cheddar with whiskey.
Ooh.
See, like, this is where I kind of draw the line. I think whiskey and cheese are amazing, and they're amazing when they're not together. You could eat them together. I don't care, but not in the same product. Like, you can imagine a bottle of cheese.
It's like Slide and Share. You don't want you want them together, but not together.
You know the cliche of the gourmet person whose taste becomes more and more insane because they've tasted so many tastes and they just want a new one. Basically, as a Swiss person, you grow up like that with so many different cheeses that you're like, well, what kind of different cheeses can we get?
Oh, give me that blueberry goat cheese, yes, sir.
Ooh.
Or just recently,
that actually is at a local place of mine.
There was a local place that had goat cheese with honey on it on their charcuterie boards.
Well, actually, if it's a charcuterie board, charcuterie is specifically meat. So if it has cheese on the board with the meat, then it's just a meat and cheese board. Finger
But that's
guns.
not a fancy French. That's not a fancy French word. So
I don't give a
you
fuck.
can't be superior. I'm gonna still call it charcuterie.
I can't help that you're wrong.
Charcuterie.
What was that?
Charcuterie.
Charcuterie.
Shock the mountain.
Charcuterie. Charcuterie.
There we go.
Anyway,
At some point, I should start yelling in my dialect.
Yes.
it's okay. It's okay, Philly. It's okay.
Which nobody will understand except people from Switzerland.
Angry Swiss noises.
All
That's
right.
true.
So a brief
even though
history of cheeses.
Yes, let's
To
get
us,
started.
it sounds incredibly like Germans, but to Germans, it sounds like a foreign language.
All right, let's get the video going on. I'll read some super chats. We'll get started. Jake the Surgeon, thank you, sir. Grilled cheese sandwich is the best use of cheese. Fight me, I'll put a pain baby in you. You know, it's a popular style of eating cheese. It's very simple, and I see it all throughout the world. Not only at like Christmas markets, but even at restaurants, diners.
Well,
Have you ever had grilled cheese?
Message coming in.
yes, but
Patching it through.
actually, like what I find that most people just ignore is like there's elegance and simplicity. So yeah, you can have like a good grilled cheese, and it's so simple. But if you do everything properly, it's fucking sublime. So yeah, don't diss the grilled cheese. It's good stuff. Every dish is good if made properly.
Right, exactly.
I'd make a grilled cheese. It's so good.
Here's Jake the Surgeon again. I think we know what Smud does with his Swiss cheese. Yeah, I buy it.
You buy and you fucking eat it like a man.
What kind of Swiss cheese though?
Emmenthal, Jarlsberg.
Oh, Emmental. Okay.
Yeah, well, Jarlsberg is great because it reminds me of normal Swiss cheese, but it's just cheaper and you can store it for about I think a few days longer. But by then it's already gone anyway, so it doesn't make a difference.
At some point, I would love to try Emmental from in the US because I would be so curious if it's different to what we have.
Oh God, yes. Oh God, you can imagine the differences of fat content and water and age.
So some Appenzeller, as we call it, Appenzell cheese is actually really great because they usually do some herbs around the outside, so it becomes little bit of a herby flavor, a little bit of spice. It's also really nice.
See, little things like that,
Mhm.
I'm okay with. If you want to do little salt, little pepper, little this, like that's like all right. I can understand that. I've seen some sausages.
Actually, it's the something that I find is like underrated is like the use of pepper in dishes, because like pepper can be such an amazing spice to use for certain things.
Like
And
black
it's
pepper?
yeah, just like standard black pepper. If you know how to use spices right, it can be heaven and earth. It's incredible the things you can do with just like a tiny tweak of like a basic fucking spice that people don't think about a whole lot. It's amazing.
Fresh crust black pepper. Like I will never go back to the pre-ground black pepper where you get the grinders. They're actually not that expensive.
Add a girl. Oh, I'm so proud of you right
Yeah,
now.
look at me. Look
Well,
at me.
all you got to do is spend some time in either a deli or any kind of marketplace where there's spices. Indian spices are fantastic, and you will learn the wonderful flavor of vanilla or turmeric or all kinds of spices that you can add to something to make it taste like something which it's not even part of the same group, like sugar. Like
yeah,
vanilla.
round your flavor wheel.
Exactly. So you could add vanilla to pancakes without any sugar. It will taste sweet, depending on how.
Well, it's
yeah.
also they have cottage cheese pancakes in Japan.
Yes, they do.
That are very savory, and it's really interesting, like the flavor texture of it.
The idea of it, well, I like cottage cheese, but you said that and I was like, ugh. But I bet it would be pretty good.
Yeah, it's just all about like being a little, like a tiny bit adventurous and just like going outside comfort zone. It's all good.
Yeah,
No.
but there's not really great education on spices and like around here, or even
Well, okay. You want to know how you learn? You just sit
Use them.
down and you taste them.
Mm.
Not a
You
whole
just
lot.
finger in and lick it.
Yeah, just like a little dab, just so like your brain like processes the flavor, and then like you just like gauge how that will fit into the dish itself.
Now, one of the things some of the best cheeses I've ever had were like in super local cheese shops near to Alpine regions where they get some locally made cheese that they can't buy anywhere else in the world. Those are some fantastic cheeses.
I would die to try it.
All right.
Do you have an extra couch?
All right, let's keep going.
Let's keep going because we're getting a little off topic.
Here's Ernie Velveeta. What a great last name, Ernie. I'm a big fan of Blast Hard Cheese. In fact, I put my faith in it. Well, you know what? Don't we all? I think we all have faith in Mr. Blast Hard Cheese. Jake the Surgeon, what would you agree? Those who don't like cheese are Satan? No, I think they're lactose intolerant.
Yes,
lactose intolerant, right?
I am actually slightly lactose intolerant.
But
that blast cheese comment reminds me of a movie I watched last night. Max Cloud. It was a low budget production that was actually really interesting and fun to watch. Oh, actually, it really was cheesy. It was super cheesy and dumb. It has like all the classic like filmmaking cliches, but there's a lot of heart in it. But I highly recommend it. It's one of those things where it's just like the low budget, like they worked well with what they had and they produced an entertaining story. And it's just a thing you don't see a lot nowadays.
But it is a little off topic.
Slightly concerning lactose in cheeses. If you buy a cheese that has been ripened for at least 12 months, there won't be any lactose in it anymore.
Oh, is that hard cheese? Doesn't upset me as much?
Very hard cheese will not have lactose in it anymore.
So that's why mozzarella fucks me up, but hard cheese doesn't.
Wait a second.
Yep.
There's many reasons why cream or certain kinds of lactic acid do and do not work, depending on how old it is, how young it is, the fluid content, how many other compounds. Like mozzarella is very, very. The only thing in mozzarella, aside from some acid, is the same stuff you'll find in ricotta, like basically just cheese curds. So depending on where it's coming from.
By the way, I'm adding blast hard cheese to the merch idea.
Really? We put our faith in blast hard cheese. Okay, great.
I'm now thinking of like not just JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6. No, Part 6 is the bad one. Part 7, the good one, Steel Ball Run. But also, there's actually a brewery near me that does a killer fucking pizza that's called the Crazy Potato Head. They do like cream fraiche, and they put like slices of potato, bacon, mozzarella, and jalapenos, and then like they drizzle it with like a sour cream, and it's fucking incredible.
I never before heard an American say crème fraîche.
Well, congratulations, you got a first timer here.
Cream?
I've used crème fraîche before in some dish.
What is it? It doesn't matter that I can't say it right as long as I know what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just
cream fresh, right? Yeah.
Often when I laugh at stuff people do, it's usually out of delight, not out of Schadenfreude.
It's okay, Philly. It's okay. Anyway, video, right?
Jake the Surgeon, would rhino cheese from rhino milk be a good idea? I don't know.
Well, that's like saying, like, is hamster cheese from hamster milk is a good idea.
I mean, it's technically possible. I just don't know.
Yeah, I just think that's fucking dumb.
Are you going to sit there and milk a hamster, Jake the Surgeon?
Could you make cheese out of almond milk?
You know what? Jake has said some, like, insane shit, so he might milk a hamster. Who knows?
Milk some hamster titties, damn.
Anyways.
Right. On with the video.
Through the super chats. Onward.
Let's learn about cheese.
What?
Before empires and royalty, before pottery and writing, before metal tools and weapons, there was cheese. As early as 8000 BCE, the earliest Neolithic farmers living in the Fertile Crescent.
Yes, before we had iron, we had tits. So that's.
Oh man, sorry. I'm seeing like Tigris and Euphrates. I had a history teacher. If you ever got in trouble, you had to write 1,000 times. Mesopotamia lies between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers as a punishment if you fucked up in her class. So it's like I'm kind of like messed up right now seeing that.
Are you triggered?
It should have added a trigger warning for you.
Triggered?
I'm a little hashtag triggered right now.
So how do we know that there were cheeses then?
Also, the problem is with that is that like even a rock would be considered a weapon, so you can't say cheese was before a rock being thrown at a dude.
Maybe cheese was the weapon.
Whoa.
Well, my weapons were these guns. I just knocked my mic.
Look, okay, Cheddar. Your guns compared to mine is like an M1 compared to the Paris gun.
It's more like I don't know, a virgin to a Chad. I have no upper arm strength.
Congratulations, you made my point. Anyways, back to the video.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
All right, Jake the Surgeon. I wouldn't milk hamsters, gerbils, and rabbits. However, I'm already working on. Okay, I mean that's
just make sure you don't milk the male ones.
Did I stutter? Did I stutter? No, I knew it. Something fucked up. Anyways. So cheese was found in Mesopotamia. I actually didn't know that. I've not done that much of my research for cheeses going back that far in history.
We're more of a current day cheese person. We don't know the exact history of these things, so
yeah, I do the gastronomy of it, not necessarily the history.
Right.
As a Swiss, I believe at least part of my genes are cheese. So
why are you wearing cheese jeans? That sounds uncomfortable.
Of cheese making. Almost as old as civilization itself. The
Goats!
rise of agriculture led to domesticated sheep and goats, which ancient farmers harvested for milk. But when left in warm conditions for several hours, that fresh milk began to sour. Its lactic acids caused proteins to coagulate, binding into soft
this
clumps.
Art style's really cute.
Upon discovering this strange transformation...
Something I always find interesting is, like, the fact that people figured out these complex techniques through accident. It just boggles my fucking mind that like brewing beer or making cheese or things like that. It's just like years of accidents. It's just
falling down the stairs and there it was, the atom bomb.
Right. Well, they probably noticed it and said that can we refine this? Is this edible? Can we do more?
Or just like, shit, what is that? It tastes kind of good. Let's do that again.
Well,
can we make it better?
It probably came into like they didn't have any food left. Like we spent all this work and make the milk and it turned. I wonder if we can do anything to make it salvageable.
Use every part of the buffalo.
The farmers drained the remaining liquid, later named whey, and found the yellowish globs.
Also, if you make your own cheese, whey is good for soup stock.
These clumps, or curds, became the building blocks of cheese, which would eventually be aged, pressed, ripened, and whizzed into a diverse cornucopia of dairy delights. The discovery of cheese gave Neolithic people an enormous survival advantage. Milk was rich with essential proteins, fats, and minerals, but it also contained high quantities of lactose, a sugar which is difficult to process for many ancient stomachs. Cheese, however, could provide all of milk's advantages with much less lactose. And since it could be preserved and stockpiled, these essential nutrients could be eaten throughout scarce famines and long winters.
Yeah,
I know.
Some 7th millennium BCE pottery fragments found in Turkey still contain telltale residues of the cheese and butter they held. By the end of the Bronze Age,
also making your own butter is a lot of fun
in maritime trade throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. In the densely populated cities.
Do what now?
Is it somewhat easy?
Take heavy cream and then put it in a mason jar and then shake the fuck out of it until it solidifies. Then take that out. Then take that out. Then put in like a basin of water to press out all the extra liquid out of it. Well, extra whey, and then you have like butter. So yeah, as long as you like, if you work out, this is gonna make up for like your upper body day.
All that day jerking off, I finally come into handy.
Well, yeah. Churning butter, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like heavy cream, mason jar, shake the piss out of it. Go for it.
States of Mesopotamia, cheese became a staple of culinary and religious life. Some of the earliest known writing includes administrative records of cheese quotas, listing a variety of cheeses for different rituals and populations across Mesopotamia. Records from nearby civilizations.
But like vegans say this shit ain't natural. Like you're drinking another animal's milk.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there's so much like complexity with like the coincidences we have with how food was formed. Like there's constantly an argument with beer versus mead versus wine, which was found first. But I go with like mead was found first because I find it more logical that water sogged out a beehive, it got shooken up and just aged itself with natural yeast and became mead, and somehow they drank that. That sounds more plausible than like the processes you have to go through to get beer.
Yes.
So there's like such a complexity with like how we view the world when it comes to food. It's a very fascinating topic, just the history of food as a whole.
Here is Adam Wooford. Thank you. Cheese and beer was made as early as 500 to 600
Message coming in.
BCE.
Patching it
The
through.
early Egyptians were the most likely the first ones, and early Sumerians were also making it. So preservation of food back in the day, we're talking about mead. Sugar was found to be a good preservative, especially honey. So all these things, salt, sugar, drying your food out, these are all necessary so that when you work all day, none of this goes to waste. You have to figure out how it gets preserved.
Yeah, it's all about it's all about survivalism. Like in the early days of like this thing in cuisine, it wasn't about so much as trying to like find like something that's delicious. It was more of like, how do I make sure this lasts so I don't die?
And a lot of tastes of is this delicious, they like learned to appreciate the taste of it.
Yeah, that's how culture is formed.
Tastes good. Anything tastes good when you're in the brink of starvation, and then you get fond memories of that taste.
There's actually a quote from that where it's like, what's the best sauce that you could ever put on a food, and it's hunger.
Yeah.
So it's like, what was it? A guy like didn't eat for 5 days, and then he or something like that, and then he ate a can of tuna, and he said it was the best meal he's ever had in his life.
I bet.
The best cook is an empty stomach.
Exactly. So it's like there's terminology for it and whatnot. It's just like there's a very fascinating history with how the culture of food from different countries and different regions came about. It's another reason why I think cultural appropriation is bullshit, because everybody's done it. Like, you all like get things from everywhere to adapt your own cuisine. It's very fascinating and a very interesting culture that binds us all together.
Also reference rennet. This animal byproduct, produced in the stomachs of certain mammals, can accelerate and control
that's how I make
coagulation. Eventually, this sophisticated cheese-making tool spread around the globe, giving way to a wide variety of new, harder cheeses. And though some conservative food cultures rejected the dairy delicacy, many more embraced cheese and quickly added their own local flavors. Nomadic Mongolians used yak's milk to create hard, sun-dried wedges of buaslag. Egyptians enjoyed goat's milk cottage cheese, straining the whey with reed mats.
Ooh.
In South Asia, milk was coagulated with a variety of food acids, such as lemon juice, vinegar, or yogurt, and then hung to dry into loaves of paneer. That's
kind of like making a crust on like ribs. Like you like slowly like stroke the barbecue sauce over it, and then when you heat it up, the sugars in the barbecue sauce actually caramelize. So it's the same type of concept for the rind.
Yeah, some of the vegan foods involve paneer and tofu and a mix of other things in Indian cuisine. So it's fairly common. It's very old, and people have been eating this stuff for thousands of years. So
also, all the people who say tofu is bad, stop looking at tofu as a replacement for food. View it as an ingredient.
Yeah.
I am fucking tired of that shit. Tofu is not bad. It's just you're using it wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually agree with that.
Yeah, tofu is yummy, but if you're trying to replace meat with it...
Well, yeah. It's not a meat replacement. It's just an ingredient.
Its own ingredient. Exactly. It has like the consistency of like scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
You should replace meat with more meat.
Exactly. Attaboy.
Meat.
But yeah, like doing things like this, like using vinegar or like different things to agitate the cheese itself. Yeah, they're very interesting ways to like adjust the flavor. Like I said before, like this is changing the entire flavor profile of something on a like level that you can't even see. So it's very fascinating to see. Like I'm actually very glad we're watching this because there's some things I'm learning.
Yeah, because when I think of paneer or tofu, I equate it to like bocconcini in Italian cuisine, which is just a palate cleanser. It's nothing spectacular. There's not supposed to be much flavor to it to begin with. It's a young cheese. And you have like all you can eat buffet like at a Korean barbecue, and they give you little hunks of tofu. You're like, what the hell do I need that for? I got all the fish and all I could eat protein I want. It's like, no, this is just to clean your mouth out. Like, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like whenever you're doing like a tasting or a flight of whiskeys, you want to have that glass of water. You want to have that glass of water so it makes the other whiskeys taste just as good.
It's a little difficult because some of those whiskeys are so oily that you really have to like eat some bread or I don't know, do something else with your mouth to clean out your palate, because that will change how you appreciate whatever else you put in your mouth at that time. So
okay, Matthias, I'm just gonna say this because you didn't just message me on the fucking chat, but also the Discord. Fuck you, dude. Tofu's delicious. I don't care. Tofu man bad. Fuck you. Tofu's great.
Tofu man bad.
Yeah, I agree. Tofu's great.
You know what? This is like the first time you have a funky cheese or a really strong liqueur. It's like blah, like grappa for the first time, but it's a low grade grappa.
Oh, good grappa.
And then you have good tofu. It's like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it's like I do a great vegan curry. And it's just like all vegetables, and the meatiness comes from like mushrooms, and then like tofu helps add in like the different proteins, and it's like it's really fucking good. And the thing is, like, all you have to do is understand like flavor profiles and like the way like the mouthfeel is, and like the different spices. There's complexity to it. Like, good God, like talking about just curry in general, you could spend like 200 hours just talking about curry. That's how many different curries there are. It's insane.
And interestingly enough, I love putting the what's that heavy Greek yogurt that you put on some desserts. I love it on curry. It's just this rich.
Oh cream. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember the name of it. Yeah, it's
Dunn. It's not from Dunn. It's some other brand, but it's just so rich and creamy. It's like a meal by itself. But you put that with curry, which is also a very powerful flavor, and they just mesh so well together. But that's a heavy meal. Like you can't eat too much of that. So
yeah, it's like once you have that, it's like that's your rest of the evening. You don't need anything else.
Oh yeah,
it's like when it comes to curry, it's like you add yogurt or you add like thickener or different things like that. It's like I feel like the yogurt-based marinades are very underrated with things, because a lot of people don't even think about it. They just go for like the standard like wet marinades and then don't even think about yogurt. But you can have this very interesting flavor profile, or even just a thickener if you're doing like curry or a marinade with it, or a dozen other things like a sauce. There's so much you can do with yogurt. It's amazing.
It's always not misused, but never considered. Like some of the the German yogurts are fantastic.
Oh, yes.
But I never see them paired, or they just, they keep them pure, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with keeping things the way they are. But once you understand, like curry is you can make entire restaurants off curry. So it's
it's a monster.
Yeah.
Curry is a fucking monster.
There's an Indian place just down the road that is absolutely delicious, authentic.
Like we talk
Lovely
about
Indian
Chinese cuisine or pizza or entire like meals you could base a restaurant. Curry is its own thing. So you can do crazy stuff with curry.
I mean, I know a place that does it's a Thai shrimp curry pizza. It's fucking amazing.
Thai shrimp curry pizza?
Interesting.
Oh yeah, it's divine. It's divine. You don't even know. And it's from my home state, so it's extra good for me.
It's from Kentucky?
No, my home state's West Virginia.
West Virginia.
No, you don't get to sing country roads. No, I've been randomly in Mexico, and I had a group of fucking Englishmen sing country roads after they knew I was from West Virginia. You don't get the luxury. On with the video.
Mild could be added to curries and sauces, or simply fried as a quick vegetarian dish. The Greeks produced bricks of salty, brined feta cheese, alongside a harder variety similar to today's pecorino romano.
Okay, so if you guys don't know feta cheese, I think we all know feta by now. All you gotta do, go to the supermarket, buy a tub of it, chop it up into cubes, put it on your salad. You made an amazing salad. Don't even matter if you put it like oil or olive oil or balsamic vinegar. Doesn't matter. It's fine the way
literally just lettuce and feta. You're done. You're good.
It's fantastic.
There's a new recipe going around the internet that they take like a casserole dish. They have grape tomatoes. They put a piece of feta in the center, drizzle it with like olive oil, and then stick it in the oven. And then when it comes out, mix up the feta that's now like almost a liquidious state. Makes a great cream sauce with the tomatoes.
Oh, okay.
It's better when you salt and pepper it, though. They're like, it's all right.
Something I'd recommend, if you have like an olive oil, if you want to infuse, like do something interesting, take a little bit of that olive oil, put it in a Tupperware container, and then put in like cloves of garlic. Let that like infuse over a few days, and then take that olive oil after the garlic flavors infused in it, drizzle it over like not diced, but like cubed up tomatoes. Let that like toss that in a little bit, like lightly, and then mix that in with your salad. Oh man. Just ace of spades. Fucking amazing.
There's all kinds of wonderful wet oils and condiments you could put on. There's hot and dry, wet and cold, but it really depends on your flavor, what you're going for. Like Pecorino Romano, Pecorino in general is what we usually use on pasta. Here they're showing Parmigiano-Reggiano, or he's referring to Parmigiano, which I think the rest of the world knows is like the biggest, most popular Italian cheese there is.
Well, what was it? Lost my train of thought for a second, but Parmigiano-Reggiano, that's like the tip top of the Parmesan tier.
Yes, that is what we talk about the king of Italian cheese, just because it's so popular, but it's not the most well used in Italy.
Yeah, it's a very hard cheese, and it has like, just even if you slice it on its own, it has a very stiff, strong flavor. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, the cheaper one that Italians like, for the sake of getting that flavor, most people, Italians rather, would buy Grana Padano just because it's cheaper, it's harder, and it lasts longer. So it depends on, are you buying? It's basically the Levi's, like Parmigiano-Reggiano, like the Levi's of Italian cheeses. Everyone knows it. Costs a bit more.
I'm sorry, sir. I buy Wranglers. And no, I get what you're saying. It's just it's interesting hearing about like the way Italians buy cheeses, or how they go about the buying process for the ingredients. Because like I'm so like forced to understand like the American way. I really like knowing the grocery store habits of people from other countries. It's very interesting to me.
Do you
refrigerate
your cheese? I know there's a big thing that Americans refrigerate their cheese, but that's not really a thing in a lot of other places.
Depends.
Actually, it's a lot of like Americans refrigerate everything, and people from other countries normally just like, there are certain things that you don't have to worry about refrigerating, but Americans refrigerate anything because they're like.
I think with cheeses we refrigerate them. We definitely do.
Yeah, the soft cheese you definitely have to. The harder cheese not so much, but they do dry out if you don't. So
yeah, some of them can. One thing you can, well, I don't know if that's the same, but often here in Switzerland, baking paper that you can buy has a little bit of fat in it. So we often take cheeses out of their original wrapping and put them into baking paper.
Hey.
Like you'd want to put like Gorgonzola in the fridge just because it's, I don't know, 80% water or whatever. So it's pretty watery and creamy. So, but it's fresh.
All context matters, kids.
Yeah.
Oh, Gorgonzola sauce with gnocchi. Mm.
You gotta like Gorgonzola. If you don't like the
okay, I do not. I like Gorgonzola.
You can't eat too much of that stuff. Your mouth's gonna go sour. So it's really
true enough.
It's been a while, but
I kind of like a sour beer. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah.
That's why you don't take too much Gorgonzola to make the sauce.
Oh man, I'm reminded of a place local to me. They have a Gouda pasta bowl. And like they basically made a Gouda soup and put pasta in it, and it was so rich and decadent that like I couldn't eat it.
I would not.
Like, it's like I love Gouda, but holy fuck, man!
Not in a liquid format. No, that sounds ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Hey, what against liquid cheese? I hear heresy.
Well, okay.
I don't like brie.
As I said before, cheese is perfectly fine the way it is. When you melt it, you have to know what you're doing and what you're doing it with and for and what temperature. So pizza, it's like, all right, fine. You know what you're doing. Bread, sauce, cheese, done. You don't have to worry too much about what you're trying to accomplish there. But you don't just start adding cheese to sauce because you have it. There has to be a reason behind it, because anyone will add cheese as a condiment to almost anything anyway, which is what you generally do when you have pasta. So when I see like the 5 cheese sauces at Costco, I'm like, what the hell? Why would I ever?
I'm messing a bit with you because there's just slight differences in how we look at how we consume cheeses over here.
Well, it's like the 5 cheese isn't bad. It's if the 5 cheeses are just like thrown on willy-nilly. Like those cheeses can actually layer the flavor entirely, but if it's done poorly, then it doesn't fucking matter.
It's like if you try to make a quattro formaggi pizza. So you don't just take like 4 random cheeses. You take 4 cheeses that go well together in taste.
Well, the idea behind the quattro formaggio is you said quattro formaggio. That could be anything, yeah. But we think in terms of like quattro stagione, which is 4 seasons. So we think, okay, what's spring to you? What's a spring flavor? So I don't know, mushrooms or oregano, something fresh. So with 4 cheese, like you can do crazy stuff on a.
There are usually similar ones. Like they're not like incredibly drastic difference in taste.
That's what I mean. You would not you would not put pungent, strong,
definitely
difficult cheeses on a pizza because you're defeating the purpose of having a pizza. You won't just like when you see the Pizza Hut pizzas or all those deep dish ones. You're like, okay, whatever. That's something else. That's not pizza. That's bread with a layer of sauce and then like
that's fast food. No one gives a fuck.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to call that. Yeah, I would just call it regional based on the place that invented it. So it's obviously indicative of whoever thought, hey, we should make pizza 3 inches tall. I guess, okay, I don't know, maybe.
I mean, honestly, right now I'm thinking like Shokugeki no Soma, and then like one of the final battles, just like the Masalune battle at the end. It's like, oh man, it's a shame that fucking anime ended poorly.
It ended? Oh, I had no idea.
Oh, it's the ending is just so bad. Like there's a part where they bring up like the dark chefs, and then like all of a sudden it's like, oh, we have all these crazy superpowers. Oh, this ball has 2 induction skillets, and I juggle it around to evenly cook things. It's like, what the fuck are you on about?
Evil chefs?
Oh, Cheddar, you sweet summer child. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Sounds great.
Don't worry. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay. After they beat Central in Shokugeki no Soma, just stop reading. Just stop reading. You don't have to read the rest.
Oh
Soma gets married. They have a bunch of kids. They open a diner. Everything's great. It's okay.
Yeah. It's fucking wonderful. Anyway, cheese.
This cheese was produced in Sicily and used in dishes all across the Mediterranean. Under Roman rule.
Which cheese was that? Reggiano?
I don't think they said specifically. They talked about feta before, but I don't think they really said what it was.
Feta and the harder version of it.
Oh. Maybe talk about Parmesan.
I gotta read. I gotta research cheese more.
There's Pecorino Siciliano, but I'm quite sure it's made in Lombardy, so I don't know what they're talking about. That's northern Italy, not southern Italy.
They're mixing up their cheeses, man.
I don't know. It's a different. It comes from the River Po, so I don't think.
To be fair, this is a brief history of cheeses, not an in-depth history.
Okay.
Right.
Why couldn't it be a brief in-depth history?
Well, Philly, maybe you should shut the fuck up and watch the video.
Dry cheese, or Caseus aridus, became an essential ration for the nearly 500,000 soldiers guarding the vast borders of the Roman Empire.
I will say that is something interesting to think about is like war rations. It's not something that's very talked about in a lot of things today, where you don't think about the soldiers eating and like the amount of effort that's just put into the food for the rations they eat. That's just a very interesting concept.
For the food to survive the journey and whatnot.
Yeah, so not just the journey, but also the battle.
Yeah, bread, wine, water, and I guess cheese.
Yeah.
Well, bread and cheese is like a staple because it lasts.
Yeah, just something interesting I thought I'd point out. Just well, something to think about. Get Get your noggin jogging.
And when the Western Roman Empire collapsed, cheesemaking continued to evolve in the manners that dotted the medieval European countryside. In the hundreds of Benedictine monasteries scattered across Europe, medieval monks experimented endlessly with different types of milk, cheesemaking
Frankenstein
and
cheese.
aging processes that led to many of today's popular cheeses. Parmesan, Roquefort, Munster, and several Swiss types were
Monster!
all refined and perfected by
That's
these
my mom's trick for
cheesemaking
the
clergymen.
creamiest grilled cheese.
In the Alps,
Munster.
Swiss cheesemaking was particularly successful, producing a myriad of cow's milk cheeses. By the end of the 14th century, Alpine cheese from the Gruyere region of Switzerland had become so profitable that a neighboring state invaded the Gruyere highlands to take control of the growing cheese trade.
Oh my god.
Cheese remained popular through the Renaissance, and the Industrial Revolution took production out of the monastery and into machinery. Today, the world produces roughly 22 billion kilograms of cheese a year, shipped and consumed around the globe. But 10,000 years after its invention, local farms are still following in the footsteps of their Neolithic ancestors.
Yeah, because that shit's
handcrafting one of
better.
humanity's oldest.
I know, I
and
like how they
favorite
use like
foods.
dull colors for the
Find out
industrial
how
like
Swiss cheese
transportation.
gets its holes by watching this episode, or trace the fascinating and often cruel.
Okay, so wars were started over cheese. That's all you guys know. It's very important. Okay.
Oh,
There was a whole war. It happened.
Actually, I went to a great exhibit doing the entire history of chocolate. It was very fascinating.
Yeah, chocolate is pretty sad. That's why I buy slavery-free chocolate. My boys.
Oh, proud of you.
Look at me doing my part. No, yeah, Hershey sucks. Nestle sucks. You gotta put your money where your
Straight up, Hershey fucking tastes like chalk. It's awful.
Yeah,
Never
Also,
buy it. It's fucking terrible. Buy local.
I was told to remind people that it's actually not called Munster, it's called Münster.
Minster.
The same with Parmesan. Parmesan was not made in Europe. I'm sorry. That's an Americanization of the word Parmigiano. So
Parmesan's an American version.
the
I'm gonna fucking go to Italy one day and being like, do the Olive Garden thing where you run the Parmesan grater. I'm sure they'll love it.
You're a fucking degen.
yeah, there's all kinds of simple cheese. I'm sure you've heard of these before, but like bocconcini I mentioned was just a young mozzarella. There's burrata, which is very similar. There's ricotta, which is basically mozzarella without the acid. You can make it instantly. It's so easy.
It's so strange hearing you say it because I'm so used to like the Jersey pronunciations of it was ricotta is ricotta.
Ricotta. It's the Midwestern way.
Yeah. No, it's the same with
And how is it
provolone
spelled?
and
Provolone?
Asiago or whatever.
Yeah, like the Jersey Italians. That's what I'm used to.
So like one famous cheese is mascarpone, which you could have by
Mascarpone?
itself, which is creamy and light, delicate and nice and lively. But we only use it for making tiramisu because why else would you have mascarpone when you have so many other things that are equally nice? And there's a certain
It's actually also-
consistency. Yeah, there's only one reason to have it is to make tiramisu. So I guess you could use it for other things. I just don't care. So,
Yeah. Technique.
Tiramisu uses cheese?
Well, it's actually also kind of delicious with just a piece of bread and with some jam.
oh yeah, all these things are
Mascarpone
great by
is it.
themselves. But if you're going to make something really fancy, I think as simple as it is to make tiramisu, I consider that a very sweet and nice dessert. If you're going to impress someone, like take 20 minutes, make it, put it in the fridge, done. Bring it out, put it in the freezer. Actually, it lasts very long. That's what my neighbors do. That's how I had my taste change because there's only like one or two ways to make tiramisu, and they eat it frozen because it melts in your mouth a certain way because of the sugar and fat content. And I don't know why, but
so it's more of like a mouth texture thing than it is like the actual flavor.
it's okay. It depends because every Italian family is weird in its own way when it comes to food. So,
No kidding.
So one nonna will be like, I make my sauce this way, I make my pasta that way, and then the other family makes like dessert pizza, and you're like, what the hell is that? And I've never
Dessert pizza.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I've never seen that before. And then another one just makes focaccia, where they do whatever the hell they want. So it really depends on the family and what they were taught, what region of Italy they came from. Every pizza is different per region. Every cheese is in more abundance, and certain flavors like what's that really expensive spice that's orange that they coat the
saffron.
Saffron, yeah. Italians use saffron. I was like, how the hell did Italian cuisine is very cheap. It's very poor. It's for people to get by. And all of a sudden, boom, you put saffron in things. It's like, how the hell did that come about? It's like, oh yeah, no, we used to do that. You guys are poor. Oh yeah, sometimes we save up and we bought saffron when we were younger. It's like, what?
Yeah, well, that's what I was getting at. Is like everybody takes in other aspects of other cultures, and it makes it more complex and rounded. You're round the square, people. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, you get some really interesting flavor profiles from the people who did like all these interesting, fascinating like experiments in a way. A lot of good stuff.
All right, here is one of two videos. I don't know if you guys ever watch Epicurious, but I love watching Epicurious because they have all kinds of wonderful experts on. And they brought this person on a second time. They have a few other people like that. I think they have the bacon guy or the meat guy.
Wait, was this the one where it was like the whiskey gal?
The whiskey gal, the beer guy. They do a bunch of others, yeah. But this is the cheese girl. And
yes, sir.
She is fantastic. She has all the proper knives for the certain kinds of cheeses. So I really like her. But it's
all the proper knives, so just knives.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's waifu material.
Oh,
that's what you're saying. Gotcha.
I think the Scottish girl is the best, but yeah, she's pretty good too. Yeah.
Oh no, the Scottish girl's like the fucking. Yes, sir.
She is sexy and flirty and fun. I don't care what the hell she's talking about. She's just fun to listen to. But this girl's pretty cool too. Anyway, let's go.
Yes, sir.
I'm Liz Thorpe, and I'm a cheese expert. It's like really intense.
I have a question. How do you become a cheese expert?
Well,
the same way. It's the same as like becoming a beer expert or like a wine connoisseur or things like that. Well, connoisseur is a bad term. A wine taster. I can't remember the term.
It's a sommelier.
Smud probably knows because I can't remember.
For cheese, they're usually referred to as a cheese monger. So they work either at a cheese cave or a cheese producer, but it's usually as a result of a restaurant. So they have an expert sommelier for wine. So they have the wine cellar, they have the cheese cave, whatever, and they will say, okay, I'm going to give you 7 or 8 cheeses tonight because you spent the $120 with wine accompaniment, and they're going to say, okay, what don't you like? Because there's so much to not like because it's some really funky stuff out there, and they'll give you something which matches the meal and the drinks. So
yeah, it's actually very interesting with people who spend a lot of time with this because people don't understand like doing this type of thing. Like it's fun to joke and whatnot, but this takes a lot of fucking work. Like this takes a lot of time and effort to understand like the small nuances and understanding of all this shit. It was like, yeah, you can laugh and all that, but it's just like
no. This just reminded me of one thing. There's a job you can learn in Switzerland how to make cheese. So
I'm gonna head out. No, sorry.
That's fine.
It's all good.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
It was fun having you. So I was saying the official word for the profession of a person who makes cheese is milk technologist, which I just find an incredibly entertaining title.
That's a good title, Philly.
All right, so here's a 210-505 Mauve line. Mauve? Cheese and crackers. Mauve. Okay.
All I'm thinking of is Terrace and Gromit.
Oh, all right. Well,
anyways.
On to the cheese expert.
Hard cheeses. Right off the bat, what I'm seeing is that this cheese is very aged. I can tell because it's kind of brown, yellowy, dark in color. And it's got these little white patches in it, which happens as cheese ages around a year. They will get these little protein crystals in them that make them kind of crunchy. Also important is the rind. So it's got this dark, crusty exterior. That means it's been aged out in the open air. I'm thinking this is maybe an aged Gouda or like a really aged Parmigiano-Reggiano. This cheese doesn't have the dark color, doesn't have the little crunchy white crystals, and it doesn't really have a rind.
Well, if she's an expert, I expect her to.
I'm thinking it's definitely younger, and I'm guessing it's probably like a Parmesan style. I'm gonna have to taste to find out. This cheese smells really concentrated and really intense. It's like waxy.
I don't know, but I get like Die Hard vibes with these cuts.
This is definitely Parmigiano-Reggiano. This one is totally different. It's firm, but it's creamy, and it's almost sweet. Kind of like cheese candy. My guess is that this is Parmesan versus Parmigiano-Reggiano. I'm guessing A is the more expensive one.
It looks like Parmigiano, honestly.
Yeah.
Atta girl.
Italia.
So why would Parmigiano-Reggiano be twice as expensive as American-made Parmesan?
The process?
Parmigiano-Reggiano is a regulated cheese. For example, it can only be made in a few regions around Reggio Emilia in northern Italy. It has to be made
It's kind of like dried aged
unpasteurized cow's milk. And it has to be aged for a minimum of 18 months in open-air aging rooms. It's turned, it's flipped,
it's like bottle and bond bourbon.
Yeah, it's basically whiskey, only cheese.
I love it.
And by
I love it.
weird robot machines that are really cool. American Parmesan, on the other hand, doesn't have any aging restrictions, and it's actually aged in plastic. I often go for Parmesan just because it's mixed in with a lot of other stuff, and I personally don't notice the difference as much. But if I'm using Parm on top of something like a salad, where I really get the flavor of the cheese, I always use Parmigiano-Reggiano. When it's front and center, you really, really want to taste the cheese. So right off the bat, this one is definitely a fresh goat cheese. What that means is it's bright white. Goat milk is always whiter than cow milk or sheep milk. And I can tell it's a fresh cheese because it has no rind on the outside. It's young, probably been made in the last couple of days or the last couple of weeks. This one, on the other hand, has this weird brainy looking rind on the outside. So it doesn't look like a brie, but it's definitely got a molded or yeasty rind like a brie. Definitely this one is more labor intensive. I'm gonna start with A.
Is that
See,
knife?
It's totally different.
Yeah, like
It doesn't really smell like anything.
the
which
different
is actually a
knives
good
you
thing. You don't
use
want
just
fresh
for
cheese to
cheeses
smell.
is fascinating.
Definitely fresh goat cheese. It's like cream cheese, but tangy, lemony. It's like sticking to my mouth. I can barely talk. B, I'm not so sure. We're gonna have to cut it open. This is an aged goat cheese, kind of like a brie style. Definitely stronger, smells kind of nutty. I'm gonna guess this is about 4 to 8 weeks old because it's gonna take that much time to grow this style of rind on the outside of the cheese. A cheese like this could have been made by hand, but it also could have been made by a machine. If you think about little goat logs you buy in the supermarket, they go right into their plastic wrapping. Okay.
Sorry, goat logs. This is... Oh.
Yeah. I see that. I see that at Costco all the time.
It's just the terminology.
It's goat cheese shaped into a log. What do you want?
Just fucking terminology.
You usually see it covered in like pepper, or there's some other thing on the outside to make it look fancy. And it's fine.
Yeah.
It tastes fine.
No, it's just like, it's just hearing the term goat log threw me off.
Log
I'm going
de
with
goat.
B is definitely the more expensive cheese. Okay, it was a lot more expensive. I was right. All that work makes this cheese 5 times more expensive.
Like it's,
the reason why
this one's
you
definitely a
generally
little bit
go
more
with this style of
expensive.
cheese,
Oh, it's a
but
lot
you
more
sit around with your
expensive.
friends and eat this style of cheese. This one is really hard because these really look very much the same. What I can tell is that they're the same style of cheese, like what are called cooked pressed cheeses.
So right now I really have to look up what an ounce is in grams because I get confused because I don't know the measurement.
My
okay, I see.
My bet the difference between both of these cheeses is a $4 range.
Oh, that's 28.3 grams, 1 ounce. Okay. Getcha.
Nice and thin.
Getcha.
Cheese people call it an alpine style of cheese made in the mountains. I can tell that because they're not moist and creamy, they're firm. They're both aged. They both have little white specks, so they're probably about the same age, probably about 10 months. And they have a similar rind. The rind is a little bit orange. I will say one of the only visual differences between these two is that this cheese is darker yellow. That's usually a sign of grass-fed cow's milk. So cows that are eating only grass, their milk is actually a deeper yellow color from the beta carotene in the grass, and it comes through the milk, and you can see it in the cheese.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I think I need to taste them.
I think I need to taste them.
It is time to eat the cheese.
It's like, I think I need to taste them. Yeah. You don't just want to eat good cheese. Yeah, go for it. Just fucking.
I like how she has like a miniature cleaver to cut the hard cheese.
I know. That's why I find it fucking weird how like all the different fucking knives you use for like cutting cheese are different. It's like, why? A knife is a knife is a knife.
I should check the local knife smithy if they have specific cheese knives like that.
Oh, Philly, if you get like specific cheese knives forged, you had to send me pics of that shit.
I'll check. Next week they are supposed to open up back again. So
I'm sure if there's any place in the world that would have knives for cheese, it would be your country.
Yes, I definitely agree.
Switzerland.
Schwitz.
The Schwitz, they love this cheese. They have to have the right knife for the cheese, or else they don't eat the cheese.
You're almost there with the accent.
I do, in fact, love the fact how excited she is for just tasting the cheeses. It's very adorable.
Yeah, it is.
I think all the experts are really like, you could see the enthusiasm. Like they're professional, but they're like, oh, I gotta try it.
Well, it's what oh god, my father told me about this, where it's just like when somebody's passionate about something and they talk about something they're passionate about, you become passionate just from their own passion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like it's like, don't get me wrong, I love cheese, but I don't love cheese on this level, and she's making me excited just to watch her eat cheese.
I fully agree. It makes me want to go to my fridge and say, okay, let's eat some cheese.
Let's go!
So it smells like cooked milk, like if you boil milk on the stove, and roasted nuts and oniony smells, like caramelized onions. Those are all Swiss cheese, Alpine cheese smells. I'm not there yet, but definitely we're in the mountains somewhere. I may be grasping at straws here, but I'm guessing
really
this
is a tiny cleaver.
cow's milk, which might mean something. This one is much more complex. It's got lots of fruity flavors. It's very, very tender in texture. It's a beautiful texture. It's like dough.
This is that shit where, that's what I was talking about before, where it's like, you get a lot of the flavor for a lot of the things you intake when whatever the animal eats. And that doesn't just apply to the meat itself, it also applies to the cheese. Well, the milk they produce. So there's like a complexity of like the diet that they put cows through, or goats, depending on what cheese you're doing, for like the specific type of thing you're wanting. It's very fascinating. Like I said, cooking is a complex goddamn field. It's not just like, oh, throw a bunch of shit in a pot and be done with it. It's amazing. There's so much science and insanity behind it. You don't even know.
That reminds me of a cheese-related story that I found very interesting, because of course we did that. That is I forget how it's called in English, but like foreign aid stuff. We tried to help other countries. So, of course, I think it was an Asian country.
Try to drive the snakes out of Ireland?
Bordering China, where it's an alpine country, and as a foreign help effort, we built a cheese. I don't know the English word for it. Where you make cheeses? It's called
cheesery.
A cheesery, and they would produce Swiss cheeses, but they wouldn't sell, and the locals wouldn't eat it. And so they were almost on the brink of giving that up, that project. Then they realized, why not make local cheeses? And so then they started making cheeses from the local surroundings, so similar to people there make it, which then started selling, and so it became a profitable thing to help that area there. So reinvest the money in that area, which I find such an interesting story, because of course Switzerland would build a cheesery to help another country.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even know if cheesery is the right term, but
Yeah,
it's just the right thing at the time.
You got it. You're right.
Oh, hey!
I could also say chasseray, but I'm not sure if everybody would get that.
Even when I'm guessing I'm winning. But yeah, it's
Gruyere.
It's very fascinating.
Gruyere, which is
it's Gruyere. Okay, cool.
Ooh.
a very famous cow's milk cheese from the mountains. But I am going to guess that this is the more expensive one because I think it's grass-fed cow's milk. And
wait, is Gruyere mountain cheese? I mean, isn't it from? If I remember correctly, it's from the town of Gruyere, and Gruyere isn't that mountainous of a town.
Well, the thing is like if you make goat cheese from the mountain, is it alpine?
Yeah, not. That's a good question.
It's the same. It's the same thing whether you call it Gruyere or whether you call it Swiss type Alpine cheese. The same. You're saying the same thing.
Not quite, at least to me.
Oh, definitely not to you, but I'm just saying.
Look, Philly, tomato. Don't worry about it.
I will give this. I will give one. I forgot how to the English word, but I will at least admit that basically half of Switzerland is, well, more than half of Switzerland is mountains. So what is considered a mountainous area to other places might not be considered mountainous to us. So I will give you that.
Like we were talking about the term alpine, I think the French word is alpage. It's the same idea. It's a mountain pasture where they allow the livestock to roam.
Yeah. Well, to us, it's a very specific thing, alpine.
Right, and you would use this cheese in like a fondue, as you said before. It depends on what you want to do with it.
True enough.
Fucking on with it.
I would hate to melt it down. It's so good the way it is. I don't know why I'd do that, but
it just tastes amazing. Tasty. I'm going B. B is my guess.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, fuck, I was wrong. It's not $4 difference.
So this is a Swiss cheese. This is definitely Gruyere. And then this is a cheese that is made by a single farm. This is ultimately the vote with your dollars choice, because this producer has chosen to make a cheese from exclusively grass-fed milk, and it is very, very expensive to do that. Over in Switzerland and in most of the EU, there are a lot of government subsidies that support traditional food making. So why buy one over the other? You can use them for the same thing.
It is actually one thing that the Swiss government does actually invest a lot is farmers. So the farming industry and like traditional cheese making and all that kind of stuff is very heavily subsidized by the Swiss government.
So what you're saying
that
is
sounds like the alcohol industry in America right now, because like there's so many complex laws when it comes to like alcohol and like what the terminology is and how they function. It's very fascinating.
Well, it's not only a tradition thing, but also kind of really because it's kind of part of Swiss identity. And it produces. I mean, it does produce quite a bit of food. So it is heavily subsidized by the government, because if it wasn't, we would never be able to compete with the EU when it comes to that stuff, and everything would be imported. So there's actually a really heavy push. Everywhere it's like everything is labeled that it's from your region, buy from your region. It's from the region for the region is the label of it.
That's the whole thing with like Bottle and Bond. Bottle and Bond is specifically made so it's like you have a certain set of standards to mitigate to make sure that your bourbon fits this criteria. And I feel like that kind of the same level, where it's just like you have to make it up to a certain standard, and then once you meet that standard, you go beyond that for what you do. Or am I wrong?
Well, I think what he's trying to say is we should all go to Switzerland and live there.
Yeah, I would say similar. Yeah.
Yeah, cheese is fucking great. Let's go.
They're both really delicious, but here I would say you spend more money because you're voting with your dollars and supporting this type of food production.
Yay, capitalism!
Really important. Okay,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love this comparison because pretty much anyone would look at these and say, oh, it's feta cheese. But I'll tell you what I see right off the bat. Two things. This one is really wet. It's been packaged in brine, in salt water. This one's kind of dry and crumbly looking. And then the other thing I see is that this one is really, really smooth, and this one is kind of rough looking. So I actually think that this one is made with a different type of milk. So
What is that
this
knife?
is the drier looking one. It wasn't as wet.
That is
and it wasn't
a cheese
crummy.
knife.
That's
You
a
can
very-
buy a cheese
that's
knife
a
like that
holy
anywhere.
knife.
over here.
Is it for Swiss cheese or just because they have holes in it? It's better to cut, like it doesn't stick.
Actually, the concept of putting holes in a knife is because you're trying to like separate the surface area, because the more surface area you have, the easier it is for like things to stick to it and things like that. And so the idea to like make knives with holes in them is to separate. So I'm guessing the idea is like you have holes in it to make it so the cheese doesn't stick to the knife itself.
Right. Okay.
This one, the wetter one, is much like smoother and creamier. That's our milk difference, I think. It's super salty, but like all I taste is salt. It's like salty crumbs. This one smells like olives, like black olives.
That's actually another
totally
thing
different.
is that the reason that all cheese knives normally have prongs is because it's normally used to like pick the bits up after you cut them, and it's just something people don't think about a lot of the time, and it's just nice touches like that. Yeah, I have a mild obsession with like everything related to food. That's
I wouldn't have noticed.
Philly, shut the fuck up and watch the video.
Okay, I think is going on. I
love you,
definitely
babe.
think that this is the more expensive one. Real feta,
Love you too.
real sheep, real goat milk costs more, I think.
Oh wow.
Yes. So the main reason Greek
That was
feta,
way closer than I
traditional
thought it
feta, is
would.
going to be more expensive is actually because of the milk. So it's made with sheep milk and goat milk. It has to be. By Greek law, that's how you have to do it. American-made feta can be made with any kind of milk, and in this case, it's made with cow's milk. So small sheep make
God, the
very
actual
rich milk,
laws
but they
related to
don't make a
food
lot
is
of it.
fascinating.
And it's expensive. It takes considerably more sheep milk to make this.
Oh, we have some incredibly strict laws when it comes how you can keep your livestock. Like
Oh
very
yeah,
strict
I can
stuff.
only imagine.
That's also one of the reasons why we could never compete with foreign companies, because we are nowhere. We couldn't even produce the same amount, even if we were the same size, because we are not allowed to have them in such tight spaces and all that kind of stuff. Concerning food, we have some very strict laws.
Like I'm not super familiar with food laws, but with alcohol laws, a lot of things pertaining to just like what is and is not a rum is very interesting, because Captain Morgan is not considered a rum, so because it's a spiced rum, and they actually had to go to a separate category to name themselves that, and that's why we have like spiced rum as a separate thing, but it doesn't it's not technically under law as a rum.
Well, it's very difficult when you're talking about drink laws in any country, because there's only, what are the 6 major whiskeys of the world? I'm trying to remember. It's Scotch, Irish,
Scotch, bourbon, Irish, whiskey with an E, and I can't remember the last one.
Okay, so bourbon, Tennessee whiskey are 2 categories separate, right? You have, you have Canadian, you have Irish, Scottish, and Japanese. Those are the 6 I know. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and the main reason why the difference between Tennessee whiskey and Kentucky whiskey is because Kentucky is bourbon and Tennessee is a separate thing, because there are 2 separate laws dictating what those things are.
The difference is, though, before those laws came into effect, you still have distillers that were operating, and they did not need to change their recipe. So they kept doing what they're doing. They still do. So they may use more than 51% corn, even though it's not considered or called bourbon. It's made in Tennessee. So
exactly,
there's all these weird.
Well, actually, it's not because it's made in Tennessee. It's mainly due to the fact that they actually make those things not in freshly made white oak barrels.
Right, that's another fact. The Tennessee whiskey I know uses the Lincoln process, which is a way of using charcoal in a certain way.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
These rules are all weird. Like in Canada, there is no exact rule for what makes Canadian rye. It's just does it taste like other Canadian rye? Yes, it does. Therefore, it's Canadian rye. It's like what? Like, why?
I weep for Canadian whiskey because it all tastes like turpentine to me.
You want turpentine? Go to Scotland. You'll get lots of that.
Because I was curious, I wanted to check up some food laws on Swiss cheese, and I found out that Emmentaler cheese, while the name Emmentaler itself is not copywritten, the word Emmentaler Switzerland, so Emmentaler as described as from Switzerland, is actually copywritten.
Huh.
Interesting. I also found out that the first time Emmentaler was mentioned in written record was 1293.
I do know that Jarlsberg that I buy is made in Quebec, so you're allowed to use certain brand names in certain ways, but there are other rules for older cheeses or older wines or older whiskeys that you cannot do that. You have to come from the country of origin.
I had a lovely mozzarella that was aged with a little bit of bourbon and then smoked.
Whoa!
If I were to trust that it would arrive in time, it wouldn't be too expensive. I totally would send over some really Swiss cheese.
You have to be careful with these products that.
Man, I might have to make a pastrami then at that point.
Oh really?
Like if I'm getting authentic, really good Swiss, I really want to do a good pastrami sandwich.
All right.
and I don't trust local butchers for that, so it's just I'm gonna make my own fucking pastrami. Fuck all y'all. Do it yourself. Am I a monster? Possibly.
Back to Miss Feta Cheese tasting.
To make this amount of cheese. But the difference in price isn't that huge with feta, and so if there's a time to really splurge and spend the extra couple of bucks, this would be it.
Yeah. Oh no.
So here come the blue cheeses.
So if you guys don't know blue is its own category for a very special reason. Not everyone likes it.
Yeah.
It's very sour. It's very bitter sometimes. It's very creamy. It's sometimes very hard. It's its own thing. There's its own category of bacteria and aging and flavor.
This is the type of thing where I always tell people there's some things that deserve its own category regardless of what you're doing. And this is specifically that thing.
Yeah. This might not even be cheese to some people's minds. It's so foul. It's so strange compared to having a piece of I don't know, cheddar. And then
dude, a nice piece of blue cheese and just a nice.
Honestly, there are some cheeses where I think they deserve their own category that are not yet defined.
What you do is you have your cheese. And then what you do is make your own crackers. Sit down with a nice bottle of wine that you love. Shave off a little bit of blue cheese and just indulge.
And try not to get sick.
Make the cracker to the absolute umpteenth degree of what you like. Because this is literally just this is the paradise model. This is what you do to indulge in your fantasies.
All right. Everyone else who isn't crazy, what you do is you try a blue cheese before you buy it. You say, can I try that? Because I don't know. It smells kind of funky. It looks kind of weird. And you put it in your mouth, and if you don't get a foul, freaky reaction, then maybe you might like it. But you got to be... This is I don't know. This is Isle of Islay scotches. You can't just buy a bottle and go, oh, yeah, no problem. It's no. This is
I appreciate
turpentine.
being called crazy.
No, you got to be very careful. You're spending a lot of money for a big block or whatever the size is, of course. You got to know.
These are both massive fucking wedges. This is a fucking mint.
This is at least, I don't know, $50, $60. I don't know. At least. It's around there.
This is not something you get just a flight of cheeses for.
No. But the thing is, you have to know what you're getting into. With all the other cheeses, you're pretty much safe. They're going to be some degree of sour, or sweet, or mild, or nutty. This is extreme. So you gotta know what you're doing.
You don't jump into Gundam and just go straight to G Gundam. You got to watch the other ones first. Then you can enjoy the Tequila Gundam.
Okay.
There's some local cheeses where the taste sometimes is described as just sniff it and burn your nose hair off. Which tastes just so strong in smell and taste.
There are many Spanish and Portuguese flavors which they smell like something has rotten and died, but they taste delicious. So it's kind of a weird discrepancy between what your nose is telling you.
Yeah, because a lot of flavor is based off scent. And a lot of people don't really understand that. And that's the fascinating thing about that, where this is one of those few instances where the smell is not within coherence of the taste. It's very strange but interesting.
Right. So all we're trying to say is blue cheese is its own thing, and you gotta know what you're getting into before you commit. It's kind of like
its own type of animal.
Yeah, it's like any Scotch, any wine, any cheese, wine, and Scotch. I think that's the main three. So same with beer, types of beer like porter. You just can't jump into an IPA. You just can't jump into Russian Imperial Stout. You got to know what you're doing. So
a good old Rasputin.
This will burn your throat. Yeah, don't do that. Okay.
The different two cheeses is going to be sort of the culmination of all of the differences that we've seen throughout all the styles.
Oh, that cheese costs at least $60.
I'm noticing some age differences between these two blues. So this one is lighter in color, and you can see it's more crumbly in texture. The second thing, you can actually see in the top of the wheel these little holes, and that is how a blue cheese gets blue. The cheesemaker adds mold to the milk during cheese making, but in order to make the mold grow, you have to get air into the cheese, and you do that by poking holes in the cheese. This one is sort of smoother and denser. I'm thinking this one has been aged longer. It's sort of had time to meld together a little bit more. It's sort of more marbled and less concentrated. So I'm thinking this one might have been pierced by hand, this one pierced by machine. That's gonna make a big difference. And then of course, this one is obviously wrapped in some kind of leaf, and I know of two blue cheeses in the world that are wrapped in leaves. I'm thinking there's something special going on with this cheese. I'm gonna taste them and find out. Let's see. This is like classic blue cheese dressing. I need a wedge salad. This is a really good kind of standard American style blue cheese. This one, and you can see it's so...
Also gonna say, all those people who fucking diss wedge sandwiches, fuck you! They can be good if you do them properly. So I've had a lot of people who just what? No, it's just a lot of people tell me you can't just wedge a thing of lettuce and just put it in a bowl and do dressing on top of it and it's a salad. It's no, that's a good salad. Just fucking know how to do things properly.
Because English is my second language, what exactly do you mean by wedging?
Okay, what this is you cut a section of cabbage or lettuce and you just cut a wedge out of it, kind of like a cheese wedge. And then you do the dressing and things on top of that. A lot of people fucking diss that shit, and I'm like, no, that's good in its own. It's just fuck off. Just fuck off. Anyways, sorry, had to fucking grieve my errands on things. It's all good.
Cream doesn't fall apart in the same way.
So because English is my second language, a lot of food related stuff I actually don't know the English words for, preparation. So that's why I ask.
No, I'm actually super glad you do, because I know a lot about cooking. And I am happy to talk about it in every way, shape, and form.
It has this really strong fruity smell. It's just not all about salt and spice, the way that typical blue cheese flavor is. So that's kind of confirming my suspicions about cheese B. I am definitely thinking cheese B is the more expensive cheese, and I think it is a singular cheese that's made only by one farmer in the whole world. That's my guess. So, let me reveal.
Oh, that's a difference.
Yeah. It's also one of the most expensive cheeses I know. So, what makes it a 40, or I've even seen it be a $50+ a pound cheese versus like a $15 or $16 a pound cheese. That's pretty much all the stuff I talked about. It's aging. It's the fact that this is, I'm guessing, a really well-made but pretty machine-made cheese versus a very handmade cheese. And it has to do with this leaf wrapping. It's New Year's, it's Christmas. I'm gonna splurge on something that I can only get once a year. This is that cheese. So it's Tuesday night versus special.
She sounds so uncertain at this point.
Yeah, who's gonna buy like that wedge of blue cheese for which friends will actually appreciate that? I don't know, because it's not for everyone. So.
No. If you're paying 50 fucking bucks for a goddamn wedge of cheese, you get the people who are like, okay, we're gonna indulge in this, and then we're gonna have an orgy afterwards. Like, that's the type of people you get with that shit. I'm not wasting like 20 bucks on people who are like, oh yeah, that was pretty nice. It's like, fuck you, asshole.
This is the eyes wide shut party.
Yeah, it's an eyes wide shut party. And it's like, oh, this is to my tasting. They spit it out of their mouth. It's like you slap them, shove it back into their mouth, and you go, you fucking eat this shit, you piece of shit.
Yeah, this would be for very particular tastes. I wouldn't consider it for a Christmas party because, again, you have to know who you're serving. You don't just buy stuff.
What's the general rule? It's if you're doing like cheeses specifically, it's normally you only do 3 pieces. All the cheeses should meld well with each other in some way or form as far as like the palatry of the entire thing. And never ever, okay, this is a general rule when you're doing cheese boards. Never buy fucking crackers that have like unique tastes. You want the cracker to be like very bland so it doesn't interfere with the taste of the cheese itself.
Right. So none of the vegetable thins, none of the Triscuits. You want either.
Yeah, don't get the ones that are like they're bathed in fucking like garlic butter. It's like, no, you want a plain fucking cracker.
Right.
Because like the chief of the night, the star of the show is the cheese, and you don't want to fuck up the star actor.
So I like almond powder or almond wheat. What do you call almond paste? Any crackers based off almonds. There's a good crunch. It's not too heavy. The flavor is not too complex, as opposed to like a rice cracker. Rice crackers are just nothing to me. I don't like rice crackers.
The whole thing with crackers, that like that's supposed to be the textural like accent to the cheese itself, and the cheese is supposed to supply the entirety of the flavor. And that's what you're focusing on.
Right.
So yeah, if you're doing a cheese board, do that. If you're doing a meat and cheese board, specifically look for like meats that have like robust flavors with cheeses that have like mellow flavors to accent it.
And don't do unless you want to do this. I akin a complex hors d'oeuvre like a cracker with cheese and all this other crap on top to a cocktail. Okay, don't do that unless you know people who like cocktails or who like fancy cheese. Hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, it's what is a cocktail? A cocktail essentially is liquid cooking. It's silly, but it makes sense.
I like that way of phrasing it.
Yeah, it's like at the same time, like you're trying to make a singular drink that has all these different flavors or profiles and things like that, and it's like you're trying to make a dish in a drink. So it's like, yeah, cocktails are specifically like liquid cooking. And it's the same way with this thing. It's like you don't want to like, you want all the parts of the buffalo to combine properly. And that's the thing that a lot of people miss. It's like you just throw a bunch of shit onto a board and be done with it. Like, no.
Right.
You have like really good accoutrement and things like that really accent like the flavors of meats,
that's
flavors
why
of cheeses. Everything is a complex whole.
That's why your charcuterie is very plain and has just the right ingredients. You don't need to mix like a single malt into a cocktail. You can. Some of them work well, but for the general rule of thumb, you allow your audience or you allow your guests to figure that out on the charcuterie themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the most fun you could have, I think, with charcuterie. Fruits, vegetables, meat, cheese.
And, a blood and sand is a very rare occasion. But it's what I said before. It's complexity in the simplicity.
Right. So, guys, that was pretty much our wonderful talk on cheeses and things related to. She has another video on Epicurious, if you're curious about that. She's a great taster. She knows her stuff, of course. She has all kinds of fancy knives, which I love. But this is one of the cheaper ones, because if you ever watch Epicurious, they have this gigantic blackboard where they hire an artist to draw this beautiful mosaic or whatever.
I remember the beer one where it's like it was a $2 beer compared to like a $20 beer.
Yeah. that beer guy was awesome. He was really good.
Oh, dude, I love that guy. It was so much fun.
Yeah, so you could really tell with beer, it just sort of punches in your face really quickly what you're drinking, and if you can't figure it out, that's fine. You don't have to be some weird experienced fellow who can have this nuanced tongue and smell and all this other crap. It's like, no. You know what you like? Go find it out. If you haven't tried something, that's why you have a bar. The bartender will be happy to give you samples from taps or whatever, just to try it out.
The best bartenders are the one where you tell them, give me something I've never had before, and they give it to you. And they have no... It's just like you tell them what you like, and you go, just give me something I've never tried before, and they give you an incredible cocktail. It's amazing.
I want to start an initiative to make it law, to make it part of our constitution that every Swiss-born citizen automatically gets a cheese expert license.
Ooh. So the same way they have state ordained guns, like everyone has to own a gun to protect themselves.
God, I wish that like there was a state mandate within the United States for everybody to own a gun.
Every Swiss male, except for special circumstances, has to go to Swiss military, and once they have done Swiss military service, they are required to own a military service gun.
No.
Themselves.
In the military service, you have to go through a cheese tasting license.
Oh yeah, true enough. That would also be great. Just generally speaking, in order to
every Switzerland male has to go through like cheese
it's
training.
Gonna be okay. You have to get your gun. Yes. You have to do it cheesemonger. You have to know how to fly, and your scuba license all at once. Just go.
Part of becoming a Swiss citizen is doing that as well.
Oh, Philly, I love you so much.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to have another SmudCast, I think another hour or so, depending if I can get people to do it. And then we're doing another SmudTalk later in the evening, if you are around for that. It's going to be about a video game that's been hitting the news recently, and we're going to be having some fun chats about that. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk to you real soon, and take her easy.
Y'all have a wonderful evening.